Hello and welcome. I'm Joshua Unger, a board member for the Florid Smoke Free Association. We are going to discuss the association, the purpose of our organization, as well as the Florida Smoke Free Defense PAC and what it is. In addition, we'll discuss how we navigate through legislation and achieving a record of successfully defeating 34 bad bills in the great state of Florida. But first, I want to thank those responsible for putting on this great show, Voxpo and Vapouround magazine, and their entire team of professionals. I also want to say thank you to all of our members and support from around the world that make us as successful as we are. Thank you. The Florida Smoke Free Association is a nonprofit advocacy group comprised of vaping businesses and consumers. The goal of FSFA is to support and protect the Florida vaping industry. FSFA works with legislators and Florida health officials to reduce the devastating effects of combustible tobacco products. FSFA is aligned with industry advocacy groups that bridge gaps between state and federal levels. Our media outlets provide access to scientific studies, legislation, and educational materials associated with the vaping industry. We engage with businesses, the media, industry advocates, and the public to ensure vapors' rights are addressed. We are dedicated to increasing communication, education, and a truthful dialogue between all parties. We are also active members of the Vapor Technology Association, which played an important role in our SB 810 veto campaign. Since 2014, we have been focusing on protecting adult choices to choose an alternative to combustible tobacco products. This past year, one bill went as far as our governor, who vetoed that bill. We could not have achieved our goal without the help of many parties. Specifically, thank you to the FSFA membership, the vaping community, the Vapor Technology Association, and Converge Digital. Without any and all of you, we wouldn't have been successful in defeating all of the campaigns and bills that we did. First, let me talk about the economic impact of Florida and what the vapor industry represents in Florida. The vapor product industry is an important part of the Florida economy. About $543 million in vapor sales lead to over 10,000 jobs and almost $1.5 billion in economic activity. Of these 10,000 plus jobs, 2,900 are held by Floridians working for the 800 plus independent retail vape shops. 900 plus are held by Floridians working in 38 manufacturing facilities. 1,460 are held by Floridians working in wholesale and other retail establishments like convenience stores. And 5,525 full-time equivalent jobs in Florida depend on the manufacture, distribution, and sale of vapor products. Excuse me. Based on independent vapor data, flavored vapor products currently account for about 79.4% of sales volume. Therefore, SB 810's ban on flavored vapor products would have caused unemployment of over 4,500 Floridians, caused the loss of 186 million plus in wages and benefits, caused the loss of 48.5 million in state tax revenue, and caused the loss of 605 million to the Florida economy. More importantly, if Senate Bill 810 was signed into law, the independent vapor segment of the market would cease to exist in any meaningful way, since the vast majority of the 803 independent small vape shops in the state would likely have to close. No business can continue to exist if they were to lose almost 40% of its revenue. Let me just say that's a mouthful and a lot to digest. Here at FSFA, we're constantly talking about what we do and have done to defeat anti-vaping bills in the great state of Florida and how we are active in the Capitol before and during the legislative session. A lot of times we're here speaking on the behalf of operating businesses, their employees, and more importantly, the million plus vapors that have used vaping to stop smoking. I've got a question, so let me step in and I'll answer this question. The question is, what do you think the government should be doing to help? Well, quite honestly, there's a lot of things that in the state of Florida that the government could be doing to help. vaping is still is not considered a tobacco harm reduction or a way to quit smoking, and we legally, in most business aspects, can't speak to that. In countries like the UK, there are vape shops and vapor sales companies inside hospitals and medical facilities. They use vaping for those trying to quit smoking. There's a lot of opportunity for people that are smoking to get access to vapor products that will allow them to quit. The United Kingdom has embraced vaping as an alternative to smoking and as a cessation device and as a way to help a large portion of the population that is trying to remove itself from combustible tobacco to get off combustible tobacco and stop using combustible tobacco as a route out. And we don't have that in the United States. Right now, in the United States, vaping is a scourge. We are looked at no differently, or in most cases worse than big tobacco, because we don't have the funds that big tobacco has to lobby and the money in their war chest to fight. So there's a lot. The government could step up and really tell the truth, do more research, spend their money understanding how vaping has helped many of my friends and family members and a numerous number of smokers to stop smoking, start vaping, and then the large portion of those people that have stopped vaping. So there's definitely a lot that could be done by the government to help. So a large portion of vapors in Florida have used vaping to quit smoking. My friend's family, it's really important to understand that when I go to the Capitol as a board member and as a business owner and someone that sees the benefits of vaping, I go there to speak on behalf of the industry and the employees that work for me and those that work for members of our organization, as well as all the vape stores, manufacturers, and companies that aren't participating or members of funding our organization and fight. And a lot of what we do when we go to Tallahassee, important component of how we fight in Tallahassee, is that we go during and prior to the session. We speak and meet with legislators. We speak and meet with our lobbyists in Tallahassee, and we're constantly building relationships and continuing to support the legislators that support us in our fight. So going back to let me talk about the Florida Smoke Free Defense PAC. An important component of how we take that fight to the legislature in the Capitol and getting support of legislators in Tallahassee is by supporting those legislators during their campaigns and by helping them to fund their reelection efforts. That is done through the Florida Smoke Free Defense PAC. I think I should start by explaining that what a PAC is and what it does. A PAC, or Political Action Committee, is an organization that campaigns for particular political policies and that gives money to political parties or candidates who support those policies. The Florida Smoke Free Defense PAC funds legislators that views are aligned with the vaping industry. We look for legislators, politicians, those coming into office or those that are in office that are anti-regulatory, understand how vaping has saved lives, or that vaping can be used for smoking cessation or to quit smoking. And there are definitely several different ways to look at those candidates. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're looking to make sure our rights as vapors and our rights in the vapor industry are protected. And so politicians that have family members or friends and family that have quit smoking through vapor make up some of our strongest allies. They're the ones that understand, more importantly, that vaping can be a benefit and a health benefit and has saved the lives of their family members and such. Then you have, on another level, you have legislators that are anti-regulation or more about liberty and rights. And we know that those legislators are much more about open government, anti-regulatory, and freedom. And so their interests also align with ours because they don't want to They don't want to enforce extra regulation or rules upon industries because they want more of a free capital system. And then obviously on the flip side of that, we have legislators and politicians that are funded, or their elections are funded and paid for by big tobacco or the anti-vaping community. And those legislators, are working ardently against us. And those people have been helped into office by organizations such as Big Tobacco or non-government organizations that are anti-vaping or anti-smoking, or wrongfully believe that smoking is just an extension of Big Tobacco or those industries. Some of those would be obviously pharmaceutical companies, such like that. So ultimately, at the end of the day, the Political Action Committee's job is to raise funds, and we raise funds from individuals. You can donate to the Florida Smoke Free Defense PAC through a link on the flsmokefree.org website. You can also find it on Facebook at Florida Smoke Free Defense. And both those locations have information about the PAC, and you can obviously reach out to any of the board members or participating members for questions. What I'd like to do is take some questions in regards to the Political Action Committee, any of the actions the board has done or fought to fight bills and legislation that we defeated in Florida. I've been on the board for 3 years now, so I've been to Tallahassee for 3 full legislative sessions. I've also been to Tallahassee prior to that as a business owner and not a board member. So I definitely have a little bit of experience in Tallahassee talking to our Florida state legislators and senators. I have some questions. Let's go through them. Let me start with, if Big Tobacco is basically running everything, can vaping last long-term in the U.S.? Well, yeah, I do believe that that we're fighting the good fight here, and that we're on the right side of history, that we know that vaping can be used as a that we have many friends that have used vaping to quit smoking as a cessation device, and many of those people have stopped vaping altogether and stopped using nicotine products altogether. So Big Tobacco is fighting against us, and Big Tobacco is long-term's battle is to hedge out small vaping companies, and they're doing a very good job of that. The best way to ensure that vaping can last a long time in the U.S. and can pass through regulatory hurdles and can continue to do business here is to support state organizations and federal organizations that are lobbying on the behalf of vape companies, vape manufacturers, vape stores, and those that are both members and not members throughout the different municipalities. So in most of the states, there are organizations that are funded by state membership to fight in those states to make sure that there are less anti-vaping laws passed to the states. And on the federal level, the VTA and CASA fight for the federal rights at the federal level. And there are many times where Florida Smoke Free has participated in federal lobbying efforts and gone to DC and spoken with our federal representatives, either there or in their local districts. So yeah, I do believe that vaping can last long term in the U.S. It is a hard and long fight, is the right fight, and it'll take considerable effort, considerable funds, and a lot to get done. But yes, I do believe it can last long term. Contributing to the PAC, and who can contribute to the PAC? Contributing to the PAC is easy. You go to flsmokefree.org. There is a link to the Florida Smoke Free Defense. Donations can be made directly on the page, and you can only contribute to the PAC if you are an American citizen from within the U.S. You cannot, foreign nationals, non-citizens cannot donate to the PAC. You have to be here inside the USA to donate to a political action committee. It's not just our PAC, it's all PACs. And again, you go to flsmokefree.org, you scroll down the page to the PAC. There's a link right on the page. You go to that link and you click it and you make your donation. It's super easy. It's not difficult at all. It's very easy to get done. All right, I'm sorry, I'm going through these questions. What can UK vaping advocates do more to support our efforts? Vaping advocates in the UK can obviously continue doing what they're doing. They're fighting the right fight, and they've convinced and properly convinced the UK government that vaping has its benefits, and governments are more likely to listen to other large governments is the number one thing, but they can continue to put out results and studies and continue with white papers, and they can donate to our cause. You can go to flsmokefree.org and you can donate to our organization, which helps fund our fight and pay for our lobbyists. And so you can't donate to the Florida Smoke Free Defense PAC, but you can donate directly to FSFA and participate with us. If you're a manufacturer outside the U.S. and or in the UK and outside the U.S. and you sell in the state of Florida, you should be a member. Every dollar here goes to use. Everybody here donates their time. There are no paid board members. The president and the vice president of FSFA donate their time, as do I. It's a passion for all of us. It's something we believe is right, and it's how we can be involved in government and supporting industry. No, if you are, the next question is, if we're outside the U.S., can we contribute to the PAC or only donate to the Florida Smoke Free Association? If you are outside the U.S., you can only contribute to the Florida Smoke Free Association. It's illegal to contribute to a PAC by a foreign entity. So you cannot contribute to the PAC, but please donate to, if you're so inclined, donate to the Florida Smoke Free Association. We'll use the money to support our lobbying efforts, our PR efforts within the state, our campaigns to overturn bills. The SB 810 bill was a very expensive battle for us. Not only do you have our current, that's a great example of what kind of expenses we go through. So with SB 810, we have our contract for our lobbying team in Tallahassee, and Jerry Paul and his team are amazing. They do a great job. They've done a great job for us for many years. They have the right relationships and connections in both the House and the Senate in Tallahassee. But this bill got to the governor, so we actually had to employ a lobbyist that had direct relationships to the governor's office and his house, or however you call that. I apologize for my a little bit of ignorance there. That being said, that was very expensive. On top of that, we had to do a lot of campaigning to draw that bill down. We had to make sure that everybody understood the economic impact. We had to go back and re-campaign and lobby with all the parties at the governor's office to make sure they understand the impact, and get other legislators to also support our position. So there's a lot that goes into that, and it's a much more expensive effort when it doesn't get destroyed or stopped, I guess I should say, at the legislative portion. If it gets to the governor's desk, it's more and costs more for us to do. The next question is, what can we do to help against these big tobacco companies? Really, everything we're talking about is about funding the fight. every person that vapes is a customer that leaves Big Tobacco, and Big Tobacco is going to fight for their life at Tallahassee, in state capitals, and in our capital in DC to ensure that they continue to offer huge returns to their investors and their base. And so the fight against them is really supporting your state and your federal advocacy groups. If you're in Florida or you do business in Florida, you should be supporting Florida Smoke Free. If you're in Florida or you do business in Florida, you should be supporting the Florida Smoke Free Defense PAC. There's no question about both these organizations are the organizations that do what's necessary to defeat the bills that come at us here in Florida and on the federal level, and we participate on all levels. That's how you fight against Big Tobacco, other than stop smoking. And if you're here, you've probably already stopped smoking. Support us, support our industry, support vapors' rights. Help by being a FSFA member or being a contributor to the Florida Smoke Free Defense Fund, PAC. Do I agree with the speaker before that Biden is bad news for vaping, or do I have a different opinion? I tend to believe, and I don't want to, I'm not here to talk about my political beliefs, but I tend to believe that Biden is bad news for vaping. In several of his town halls, his answer was he would shut down vaping till there was significant scientific evidence that he believes supported it as a healthy alternative to smoking, or a cessation product, or as a way to quit smoking. And I think that is a very dangerous position. My argument would be that there's plenty of anecdotal evidence that smoking has been used by millions of people in the U.S. and abroad, internationally, to quit smoking, and that there's plenty of evidence that explains that smoking is worse than vaping significantly, and that for his opinion to be that we'll shut it down because it's bad and we don't know enough about it, instead of, hey, you shouldn't vape if you're normally accustomed to breathing fresh air and that's all you do. But if you're smoking and you're burning, and you're combusting tobacco leaves to get nicotine into your system, vaping is a better alternative. There's scientific evidence to that. It's proven. It's something that you can find numerous white papers and supporting documents on. I think everybody, including myself at the FSFA, I know everybody at FSFA believes that that no teens or children should be vaping, and you shouldn't be picking up vaping as a vice. You should be picking up vaping as an alternative to smoking and to quit smoking. So ultimately, at the end of the day, the small portion of people that are not smokers that vape don't represent the majority, and they don't outweigh the majority that have benefited from using smoking or using vaping to quit smoking. So I would say that it's a dangerous position for President-elect Biden to be that vaping doesn't have scientific support. And yeah, I do believe in the short term that Biden is bad news for vaping in theory. In the long term, when he addresses all the other issues that our country is dealing with, is when we really need to be concerned. But overall, I definitely am concerned that Joe Biden is more regulatory, and more regulatory is bad news for our industry, at least in the short term. There's just not enough information that they will use to defend it. So yeah, I do. I believe Joe is bad news for us now. People can help spread the message. Yes. So the easy way to help spread the message and call it to actions found on Florid Smoke Free. There's a lot of information for anybody that wants to follow us on Twitter. Our handle on Twitter is, and I apologize, let me look at it real quick here. Our handle on Twitter is FL Smoke Free. I'm sorry, our handle, yes, that is our handle on Twitter is FL Smoke Free. And on Facebook, we are Florida Smoke Free Association. There's a lot of information on both of those social media handles. You can find and share that information. You know, if you are a vapor and vaping saved your life and helped you quit smoking, please share the calls to action, the messages and alerts you see on our social media. Share them with your other friends that aren't following those pages, because every vapor is a messenger and can deliver the message to the next vapor. We need as much help and as much support from every and all vapors as we can get, guys. So please definitely share what you see and participate in the calls to action if you can. We appreciate it. The next question is, in my opinion, does global mainstream media harm the industry? I remember reading an article that claimed vaping is more harmful than smoking and causes more lung-related diseases than what a cigarette. Surely this doesn't help the general perception of vaping. Yeah, I definitely would agree. I think it's a broad statement to say, does global mainstream media harm the industry? But I definitely would say the media can be harmful to the industry. For every 1 or 2 articles in support of vaping as a better alternative to smoking or as a potential cessation device, both domestically or international, there are probably 10 articles about how vaping is harmful, how vaping is detrimental, how it is more addictive. I think that a really great article I read recently was in regards to the new movie out that is You Don't Know Nicotine. I think that that's the reality. The more and more I read and learn about nicotine and have over the last, I don't know, 7 years, 8 years at this point, 6 years, the more I realize that nicotine itself is not the demon that everybody sets it out to be. That nicotine has a lot of pros and cons, and as do all stimulants, caffeine, whatever else people are into. I'm not going to dive into that conversation either. But if you know, I don't drink caffeine, and so that being said, I know that when I take caffeine, I can feel the effects of it. I don't drink coffee because of the way it makes me feel. And I would tell you that all stimulants work like that. So if you don't understand the benefits, the pros and cons, and they're not being expressed or properly reported on, then yeah, mainstream media can easily become no more, no less than propaganda if it just is spouting the opinions of others and not really delivering facts and news. I think we've gone away from a lot of that, and I think that the reality is that that if you don't have the right sources of information, then yeah, if you're reading bad information, and I don't think that applies just to this, that applies to everything in the world, unfortunately, today. But everything can be harmful to vaping if it's not the right information. And so, yes, if you're reading opinions or op-eds about vaping and they're not factually related articles, then yeah, they could definitely be detrimental to vaping. Vaping needs to own the pros and the cons. And so I believe there are a lot more pros to vaping and to having a legal, regulated vaping industry than there are cons to that, and that's why I'm here. You know, I don't operate an active vape company in the country any longer, but I do believe in the cause, and that's why I'm still a board member. I hope I answered that question. I might have just rambled on a little bit too much. Also, let me let you know that You Don't Know Nicotine is available for pre-order starting today, and it can start being viewed tomorrow on KnowNicotine.com. that is a great fact-based, I'm going to call it documentary on nicotine, and it's really a great movie. I think you should go see it. It really will open your eyes to a lot of what you didn't know about nicotine, and I think it is an educational film. Do I believe that big tobacco organizations releasing nicotine harm reduction products is less detrimental to the industry than big pharma? Let me read that again so I can make sure I answer it properly. Do I believe that big tobacco organizations releasing nicotine harm reduction products is less detrimental to the industry than big pharma? You know, I think that any nicotine harm reduction product, if it's an actual harm reduction product and it's based on facts and it's not based on opinion and there's science backing it up, I don't think it's detrimental to the industry, in my opinion. I believe that any healthy alternative to combustible tobacco is a route that every smoker should have access to. It should be a choice, and it should be based on education and science. So I don't think either are harmful to vaping. I do believe the propaganda that follows, the advertising, the marketing, and the lobbying dollars that go to fight our industry from both big pharma and nicotine are both what really is the problem and what's detrimental to the industry. Big pharma and tobacco having tobacco harm reduction products or having cessation devices, I don't consider that bad. It's the funds that they benefit them that they use to lobby and fight us that are detrimental to us. So what are my thoughts on the so-called 2019-2020 vaping lung illness outbreak? 2,711, I guess that's ill, and then 60 deaths. They're treating it like a pandemic, cigarette-related illness, and deaths greatly surpass the aforementioned figures. You know, I think that again, that's that propaganda we talk about. I think you'll find that you know, as that so-called outbreak, vaping lung illness outbreak progressed, it became very clear that it wasn't the vapor industry, that it was really black market and illegal product sales that were responsible and caused those illness and those deaths. And it was also a large portion of that was illegal THC devices and you know, kitchen-made products. I would say that, yeah, in the beginning it was treated as a vaping pandemic where cigarette-related illnesses and deaths were not mentioned. And I would tell you that I think the biggest problem that we have at the vape industry is explaining to people that have come to accept cigarette-related illness and deaths that vaping is safer, but not only is it safer, that as we progress from smoking combustible tobacco to vaping, that we'll start to reduce those cigarette-related illnesses and deaths. And the problem is that right now we're in this very early stages where people don't know what's going to happen, and a lot of our so-called enemies are rallying to the side that we are just an extension of big tobacco, and that we're using the same language, the same terms, and a lot of the same fight that big tobacco used to ward off the early non-government health organizations, and for them to say, hey, it's healthy. And really, there's not enough data that says it's not healthy. There's not enough data that says what it is. And so a lot of these organizations are just saying, hey, you're an extension of big tobacco, and you're pushing the same agenda, and you're trying to get our kids addicted to smoking. Now, a lot of that is misplaced and uneducated. But on the flip side of it, you see that they've come to accept cigarette-related illnesses and deaths, and they don't think of that as unacceptable. I think I recently read a quote somewhere. If you tell people 1 million people are going to die from smoking in the next few months, they won't be shocked. I'm not shocked. I walk by a smoker every day and go, why does that guy smoke? Doesn't he know he's going to die? Why do people still smoke? It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't even shock me when I hear somebody dies of lung cancer. So we're desensitized to that, and the general population is desensitized to that. But when you hear somebody gets ill, 2,711 people, which is a tiny number in the scheme of the world, this tiny number of people that get ill, and this tiny number, and by the way, 60 deaths is way more than should have died from anything. But it's a number greater than's ever been ill from what they would quote to you and say is vaping. We know that that's not the case now. And so it causes chaos and mayhem. I think in the beginning they didn't know what to call it or latch onto, so they really push it as a vaping epidemic. I think at the end, and quite honestly, if you recall, COVID happened right after this, so it kind of all went away. But at the end, I think it was coming out as what it really was. And as it was discovered what it was, the press and the media kind of dropped it and really didn't talk about it anymore. So I kind of think it's a non-issue, a non-question anymore. I think COVID kind of buried all of that stuff, to be quite honest with you. We've been dealing with COVID for 9 months now, and we've got some time probably left in that. So I think that we probably won't hear a whole lot about that so-called vaping lung illness outbreak. And quite honestly, I think that by the time all this other stuff settles, that we'll know all the right answers about it, and then we'll never hear about it because the press doesn't want to talk about it once it's can't be sensationalized or made into something evil. So that looks like that's everybody's questions and answers, and I appreciate everybody's time. I thank you guys for giving me the time to speak on the stage. Please don't forget, you can find information at our website at www.flsmokefree.org or Florida Smoke Free Association on Facebook, or FL Smoke Free is our Twitter handle. Again, I'd like to thank everybody at VoxPo and Vapouround Magazine for putting this on. Visit our website, our social media, and help fund the fight. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.